My name is Becky Legiro of CoinGeek.com. I'm going to be your moderator today. I have been in and out of the online gambling industry for about 20 years now. And for the past 10 years, I have been studying and reporting on blockchain tech and where it intersects with AI, IoT, and IPv6. So I am very excited for this panel because this is a topic that I dive into quite a bit in my real job. And this is why I think you really need to listen and pay attention to this panel. I know that the online gambling industry notoriously is shy with innovation, kind of stuck in the ways. I know Joseph might elaborate on that a little bit. But these emerging technologies are going to help you with your operations, and they're going to bring new revenue streams into your business. So this is very important to listen to and to get involved with. I'm going to let these experts dive into all of these topics. Hopefully you'll walk away with some amazing takeaways. So the panel lasts an hour, and I really would love for you guys to ask questions so these guys can address the issues that you are facing. So I will proactively break about halfway through to see if you guys have anything to ask, and again at the end. But if something comes up in your minds along the way, please just maybe raise your hand, try and grab my attention, and I'll try to get them to answer it in the moment. So enough from me. I'm going to have my panelists here introduce themselves and explain to you what background they have in the frontier technology space and in the online gambling world. So Joseph, I will start with you.
Hi, I'm Joseph Borch, and I've been in the gambling industry for 18 years now, a bit more. I started as a regulator, then I spent 6 years at the Motor Gaming Authority, then I moved to WH, where eventually I tried to get out of this industry. I didn't finish completely. 6-7 years ago, I started building a practice on crypto and fintech and payments and so on within my firm. And yes, I managed to build the practice, which is good, but I didn't manage to get out of the industry completely.
Thank you. Karina?
Thank you. My name is Karina Manecka, and I'm lawyer consulting tech and digital businesses for more than 5 years. Currently, I'm in-house counsel in B2B sportsbook solution DataBet, and I'm just eager to join this panel and discuss how AI can actually enhance our businesses and make it more valuable experience for users.
Amazing. Jaka?
Hello, I'm Jaka Repanšek from Slovenia. I've been working in media, gaming, advertising sector for about 20 years now. Lately specializing mostly on the European digital files like DSA, DMA, also AI Act to a certain extent. So we'll be talking about that as well today. But my official function is I'm the president of the Slovenian Advertising Court or Tribunal, which is competent in our country to remove or decide on unethical and sometimes also illegal advertising in all media, in all industrial sectors. So you can imagine that's a pretty interesting obligation we have within this advertising course, and that's also one of my specializations these days. Thank you.
Amazing. That's all.
Hi, I'm Stan. I'm the CEO and founder of Astral Forest, and everything that I do is related to data, analytics, BI, and AI. So I believe that we're going to discuss some hot topics today, and I have some interesting stories also to share, and I'm curious to find out your feedback, guys, so I'm hoping for a very interesting debate.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. I'm just going to start off with more of a general question to give an audience an idea of where you stand in terms of transforming the iGaming industry and the way that we do things, and then we'll dive into a bit more of the details. The question is, what is the #1 tech advancement that will transform the iGaming industry in your opinion? So I'm going to go down the line again and just give us what's on your mind for that answer. Joseph.
Well, as I said yesterday, unfortunately, the gaming industry is very limited in terms of innovation. So we've seen a lot of innovation coming when it came to the channel of how it is delivered. So we started with online, we moved to mobile, possibly in the future there will be also the metaverse. We've already seen some cases, there's some cases of metaverse use for it, but successful. But in truth, the games have remained what they are, like they haven't changed. We see very, very little change in the games. And I believe that the next big innovation will be dictated by the customer base. So as younger generations start gambling, I believe that they will want something different. Younger generations are very different from the previous generations in that they want more control, they want more participation. They are used to being more in the middle of something rather than just watching. There's more instant gratification, let's call it that way. So I believe that younger generations will be very bored with the gambling industry as it is, and they will require innovations in the gaming industry for it to remain relevant. And I believe that only then we will understand what innovations will be required in the gaming industry to cater for the customer. But we've seen, for example, all those companies that came up with some blockchain innovation for gaming, which made a lot of sense on paper, but it attracted blockchain people. It did not attract gamblers, and the money in gambling is coming from gamblers.
Interesting perspective. And on the blockchain space, we've kind of given people a solution before there's a problem. And we talk about this a lot. So thank you for that perspective, Joseph. Katerina, number one tech advance.
Thank you. So I think that talking about innovation, such things as AI always go in line with the word. And actually, implementation of AI technologies and creating AI polarized tools and ability to personalize user experience using those tools is quite a big innovation. But also, coming with a legal background, I think that another level of innovation that we can actually appreciate and recognize that it is as it's actually happening is the ability to implement all those innovation stuff in preventing abuse of gaming behavior and in promoting responsible gaming. So those are the things that should go in two lines simultaneously, I would say. While we should promote and be eager to support innovation, at the same time we should go in line with our first compliance requirements and second, in general, responsible gaming requirements.
Wonderful details we will get into a little bit later in the panel. Please, Jakob.
There's not very much to add here. I mean, the obvious answer is anything connected to AI. But again, coming from a legal background, putting a lot of systems or gaming platforms in the high-risk area of the AI Act, I can just maybe point to 3 points that I prepared. Here's the behavioral profiling system, which is a high-risk classification under AI Act. AI-powered moderation, which will be a very important thing also, technology legal-wise, and player ranking and skill matchmaking systems. Those 3 things I pointed out as the most exciting and important policies.
Excellent. We'll get into that in a bit too. Okay, Stan.
I hate to repeat after the others, but I'll have to. Myself, I have an IT background, and it's everything that I do for the last 15 years, so without a shadow of doubt, I'll say AI. Why? Because we are experiencing a revolution, and even yesterday during the panel we had, as I was moderating the panel, we kind of discussed if it is a revolution or evolution. I let all the other people say their opinion, but to me I kind of diverged from what they were saying because people were saying it's more evolutive. I dare to say, and I hate to abuse this kind of words because for the last 10 years everybody was saying disruption, 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 and I tried to skip this word. Today I'm joining the ranks and I'm the one who's saying that we are observing a disruption. The change is happening today. It's not tomorrow, it's today, and many companies will have to adapt their business models, will have to undergo transformation, simply because things will never be the same again.
Amazing. Okay. So in my world, we talk a lot about how blockchain and AI work together. I don't know if we'll get into that here today, but just before we dive into all of this AI, exciting, sexy material, just one quick word on blockchain, because we can't forget about blockchain. Joseph, tell us ways that blockchain technology could simplify operations in iGaming?
In theory,
Yeah,
because we
that's
haven't
fine.
seen it in practice. In practice, we have seen it, but it failed till now. So in theory, it can definitely create much more transparency in everything related to the gambling experience of the player. But also, the good thing is, at the end of the day, when something innovative is good, it has to be good for the player, it has to be good for the operator, and it has to be good for the regulator. Unless the three of them are going to benefit from it, then it's not going to be so revolutionary. And yes, I agree that AI is something like that, but my view on AI is, to be honest, AI has been in the gaming industry for many, many years, and it's just evolving. So I don't know what your view is about it. I hope you disagree with me, so we'll have some fun, but I believe that at the end of the day, AI is just evolving and is going to get so much better in the next few years that yes, we will not recognize the world as it was before, just like we don't recognize the world as it was before the computers came. But it's just an evolution of something that has been used by the gaming operators for a long time already. But back to blockchain, yes, I believe that when you have transparency, which is something that everyone will benefit from, when you have also the immutability of the ledger, which again, one of the biggest problems that we see with operators is not that they abuse, but actually their employees abuse. And that's something that they can control better with blockchain. But also the regulators are going to have much more if anyone had to implement blockchain and succeed with it. They would be able to monitor better and ensure that certain processes are working as they should be. And at the end of the day, the problem that we're facing right now, and maybe AI is not so much in the face of the player, and maybe that's the mistake that was done with blockchain. They tried to create something that is very much in the face of the player, and the player did not understand blockchain. So what happened is that they said, look, I'm not playing this because I'm not understanding this game, how it's working. So while AI is in the back office, it's in the background mostly, the player will not really experience it hands-on. It will be a direct experience, but sort of not something they have to touch themselves. While with blockchain, the way it was implemented in gaming platforms was like by exposing, like, yes, we're using blockchain there, we're using blockchain. You can do this now and this and this. And the player said, I don't want to do this, I want to do what I have been doing for the past 10 years.
Yeah. And I think that the takeaway here is that blockchain can run in the background, it's the plumbing. What Joseph was saying about data transparency is super important, especially in the AI world, because AI is all about collecting the data. That's going to make the AI work properly, which Stan is going to elaborate on. So what I would love for you to do, Stan, is to give our audience an idea of what some of the newest technology advances are in the AI space today.
Okay, perfect. From the data perspective, we have 3 different areas where the AI can be applied. Sometimes to the benefit, sometimes not necessarily, but I'll get to that. The first area is when you want to collect and store the data, keep it in one place. So we can call it the data warehousing. And here I see a huge opportunity, just like in all areas of software development, the data development will undergo similar changes. Basically, the costs will be slashed, the time to market will be slashed. We're going to get new features, new products faster. They can be done by 2 people and not a team of 10. And you'll be able to negotiate better rates if you're an operator, for example, with your platforms, because the production costs will be cheaper. This is one area. Another area is when it comes to the reporting, what used to be called business intelligence for many years. Reports can be generated automatically. Today, yes, these reports will not always be extremely useful, but the technologies that I see which are being considered as mainstream today, 10 years ago, everybody was laughing at them that, hey, I'll never use Power BI, for example, because it's completely useless. Today, it's like a completely mainstream technology, and I think even Microsoft is starting to replace it with something newer. So this is the cycle that we see. And the final item, so the predictive models. Joseph, you were saying that these are things that existed, and yes, they existed for decades. What is happening now, since even everybody can go and ask a question to the chat, so the accessibility is much easier, more people can get confused. Because if you ask the question, and I'll give you this example, my friend who's running a marketing agency, we're working for the same operator, he didn't want to wait for me to model the relationship between, he wanted to measure the effects of his marketing activity on the GGR. So he didn't want to wait for someone else to prepare the model and to explain what's the relationship. He asked ChatGPT. The large language model, of course, provided him the whole code in Python in order to perform the analysis. Of course, it provided him like all the correlations, all the KPIs that were needed for validation. And he came back to me with those results. Then I started challenging him, just to realize that it was actually meaningless, because there was, my friend was missing the context, how to interpret and how to read between the lines of what was the output of that model. So he could make a wrong decision, and he could make a wrong assumption based on the data, because he was not equipped with the right way how to interpret it. And that's the risk also, so it's like a two-edged sword.
Very good. And also, I'd love to know how some of these advances will actually improve the gaming industry specifically. So Katarina, could you maybe elaborate on that for us?
Sure. As my colleagues already mentioned, there can be a lot of ways how, let's say, AI can improve operations, starting with user behavior. We can create complex approach to the understanding how the user is operating, what are his preferences, analyzing it in a real-time live environment, which means if, for example, like 10 years ago, it took a couple of days to analyze data and to create the best approach and a lot of human resources involved in the process. Now it will take a second, and from scratch you will understand what will be your next strategy, implementation of certain technology or creating an environment, etc., etc. But yet again, at the same time, we might be blocked by the compliance requirements. And actually here is a question, where is the limit where we are still using technologies and innovation in the making user experience better, and when we are interrupting too much in the user interaction with the processes, and how much he should be aware of that. But we will be covering that later, I guess, in the compliance and regulation section. Yeah, but in general, it just helps to create better environment for users, to create better profile of games or sports books, whichever industry you are talking about, and attract more users and make their time more valuable when they are spending playing games.
Very good, thank you. And I'm actually going to jump into the regulation section because we need to hear from Yaka, I think. So what I would like for you to do is dive into a bit more detail of the points that you mentioned in the introduction, and explain to everybody what the Digital Services Act, Digital Marketing Act, and the AI Act are, and how they're going to directly and indirectly touch.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. All those files are really, really big. bigger than GDPR, to be honest. To be very, very brief at the beginning, 5 years ago, the European Union decided to have a European digital decade on a regulatory basis. We figured out eventually, finally, that we're lagging 20 years behind the American and Chinese tech companies. Do you know out of 15 biggest tech companies in the world, how many are European? Out of 15. First 15 in the world. Can somebody tell me the number?
No.
It's one. And which one is it, my German colleagues? It's called SAP from Germany. So that's the only one we have. Everything else in this world is American or Chinese when it comes to tech. So we said, okay, we are going to try to make the level playing field between the EU, China, and US by regulating. Not just regulating, also investing, but regulating as part of our strategy. So we decided to put all these new regulations into place, and they will have a great effect, or a certain effect also on the gaming sector. There are horizontal acts, which means they horizontally apply to all industries, including the gaming industry. Now, the biggest files, besides GDPR, which we all know from 6 years ago, now the new ones are Digital Services Act, or DSA, which became fully effective last year in February, so it applies to all the platforms within the EU and all the platforms from outside of the EU who offer their services to EU clients. Just like GDPR in a way is extraterritorial, okay? It's a big wish of the EU to be a global regulator. We will see, and we have seen that sometimes we succeed, but most of the times we fail. We succeeded to a certain extent with GDPR in California, for example. Only a year after GDPR was implemented, California also had, but it's only one state in the US. Everybody else, is not compliant to what we call privacy rules under GDPR. Anyway, but we're trying to be extraterritorial. So DSA is all about the content in the digital world, hemisphere, digital services. And it introduces very strict rules on the content moderation, on removal of illegal or potentially harmful content. And a lot of content which is connected to gaming is assumed or is actually illegal or is assumed to be potentially harmful. So it will have to be removed through a specific tools which are defined in the DSA, not to go into too many details. So DSA is all about content. Then we have DMA, the Digital Markets Act. Now that's all about competition. It defines the so-called gatekeepers, like Google, the big guys, Apple. And there's just to give you a practical example, Epic Games versus Apple. A few months ago, Epic Games versus Apple, October 24th started case. Epic Games said, well, 30% Apple's charging the fee to have their apps in the App Store. That's against DMA. And European Commission, in the first instance, actually agrees with that. And then Epic Games say, well, the payment methods that you're forcing us to have on Apple Pay, that is something that's against DMA. It wasn't against any other regulation in EU before. And when I say regulation, just remember one thing. Before we had directives in the digital market, the single digital market of the EU. And you know what directives mean? It means that every member state can tune them a little bit to their benefit, right? The smart member states, at least. My country is not a smart member state, where we always implement the directives too directly. Okay, but anyway, the regulations are something that you cannot really fine-tune. Well, maybe a little bit, but you can't really. They have a direct effect. You don't even have to transpose them into national legislation many times. And they are equally in all 20 member states. So we're unifying the single digital market. Now, the third package, which is already effective, but it has transitional periods, and my colleagues are better experts in that, I'm sure, is the AI Act, which will also have a certain effect on the regulation of the gaming market. But some of those acts will be disruptive to a certain extent on the single European market, including the gaming market. And a lot of arguments, the MGA Malta in January 24 circled a note to all Malta operated licensed operators to get acquainted with DSA SAP as soon as possible. Because there is a lot of legal debates right now about Article 56A and the impact the DSA may have on that Article 56A. And I'm sure Joe can elaborate much more on that. But that's a really interesting topic. So we will see certain disruption Also between Malta and other member states of the European Union. This is a challenging provocation maybe to Joe, so we can have some lively debate later on, but in general those are the important EU packages, and we will go into more details as our discussion evolves. Thank you.
Yeah, I think since the topic of this panel is lessons learned from other industries, Joseph, maybe you can provide some perspective on how the gaming industry has dealt with over-regulation.
Let me start with a disclaimer before I start talking. I think it's important. So I was one of the biggest activists in Malta to push Malta to join the EU and to get people to vote in the referendum in favor of joining the EU. So I'm pro-European. I was pro-European, I still am pro-European. So disclaimer done. That said, I agree with maybe 10% of what the EU was doing in the last 5 years. So that is, so my vision is that, look, we are regulating too much. And you regulate this much, when you create so many regulations, you're only giving advantages to operators that are outside of your territory that will continue growing more than the operators that are in your territory. If you think that by regulating so much you are really going to control the American market or the Chinese market or the Asian market in general, forget it. It's not going to happen. It's definitely not going to happen, because the European market, even though we think we're the center of the world, we're only the center of the world geographically, but not economically anymore, unfortunately, and we did this to ourselves. So, in my view, the only way that we can recover is by creating some deregulation. But Jaka mentioned the DSA and the DMA, which are, in my opinion, are the craziest set of over-regulation that we have ever seen in Europe. And my point in this particularly is, what are we doing? We are just giving more advantages to the Facebooks of this world, to the Google of this world, and so on. Why? Because if anyone will try to compete with these people from Europe, they have no chance. Because these guys are so big today that they can employ 15, 20, 30 lawyers and resolve all the issues, or pay big fines like they do, and they have no problem. But tell me how a small operator who's starting off, trying to compete with these people, can actually manage to do that. Forget it, it's not going to happen. So, I believe that while I agree that regulation is necessary in many cases, but the word necessary is also important when you think of what should be regulated. Only the necessary regulation should be there. So it is necessary, but only what is necessary should be there. And that is where we're getting it wrong. We are going too far. Now, to go back to the question, which
I'm
was...
just saying lessons learned from the gaming industry, which is notoriously overregulated.
What we learned, for example, from... So, again, I've been in the industry for 18 years. I'm going to bore you a bit with this. Because most of the action happened in 2008, 9, 10. So at the time, when I was at the Gaming Authority, we were sort of the kings of Europe. Like, no one understood online gambling except the Maltese. And I remember flying around, giving presentations to various regulators around Europe, because we're encouraging them, look, regulate. We're not afraid of competition, just regulate, but do it properly. Don't ruin everything. Like, so we're going around. I went to Romania, I remember, I went to different, the French regulator came to Malta, we gave them a presentation, the Italian, went to the Italian regulator at the time, everything. The problem is that had many countries at the time realized that, look, online gambling is here, it's going to stay, and there's no way of getting rid of it, all right? And we decided together, let's come up with a regulation that applies all over Europe. The European operators would have managed to keep on growing. What happened now? Because we fragmented the market, our operators did not grow enough, and while at that time the European operators were actually buying out American operators, I remember a time when online gaming operators were buying the land-based operators in the US. Now the opposite is happening. The old operators, the old traditional operators in the US are actually buying the European operators. And today I heard on another panel Alon Segev saying, and probably DraftKings is going to buy Bet365. If that really happens, that would be really shocking in my view. Like the biggest sportsbook in the world is going to be bought by an American company. Like this, we just destroyed ourselves. You constantly commit harakiri. So let's please try to, rather than accept everything that's coming from our politicians and from the European Union, start putting pressure on you and telling them, guys, you're killing us. You are completely killing us. We agree that we need to cater for AML, but let's not go overboard, because now we're going overboard. We agree that we should monitor a bit more and put some responsibilities on certain operators on the content, but let's limit it. Let's make sure that it is reasonable, the regulation.
Right, cautionary tales there, guys. Anyone have any questions so far? We are a little over halfway through the panel. Not yet. Okay, go ahead.
You know, there's a word, there's a saying in Latin we had to learn at law school. It's, if you are quiet, it means you agree, you concur. So I think everybody concurs with what Joe just said about overregulation.
Yeah.
That's how you can interpret it.
Yeah, so perhaps before it gets too crazy with regulation, the time to innovate is now, like Stan said in the beginning here. So let's dive a bit more into some of the exciting things that we can do with AI and apply those to the gaming space. So Stan, can you tell us a bit about self-service analytics? What does that mean and how can we use it?
Surely. Self-service analytics, and now I'm again referring to Joseph, what you were saying, that to some extent we are also building on the experiences of the past. So for many years, the biggest operators were having sets of reports, data that were allowing them to make all of the possible decisions. But then historically, when you think especially about the bigger organizations, you tend to have silos, and this stifles the agility, the capability to act fast, to adapt, to adjust to the changes, etc. Self-service, just judging by the name, the idea is that you just go, you take the data, you find any other insights that you'd like by yourself, and so far, even till 1-2 years ago, you had to be equipped with at least some coding, some flair for this kind of stuff. You had to undergo trainings, etc. Today and tomorrow, you won't need any trainings, because you just apply the AI on top of everything that you have within your organization, all the data, all the information. It will tell you the answer. It will create a report that you want, that you can take later onto a board meeting that you can go again.
Yeah, this is like the use of the calculator in mathematics. Yes, we used to learn mathematics, and we didn't have a calculator when I was a kid, but then eventually we got calculators. But the fact that you know multiplication is still very important, and I think training is still going to be important, even to help you search for the right thing on the AI.
Exactly. So then we're touching about another point. What should we do then with those people that were equipped with those skills? Does it suddenly become useless, or can it be applied to, let's say, another field? And let's imagine you had people who were equipped with that knowledge. Today, let's say you had a team of 5 people. What you should do with them? Should you let them find another job, let them find another passion? Or there's another way. bring them closer to the business. If they are skillful, bring them closer to the decision makers, to the marketing teams, to the operations, to the customer service, to the compliance guys. Because the AI, at least in the foreseeable future, because we'll see what happens, but at least in the foreseeable future, it will not replace the capability to build a relationship with another human, to understand the needs to the greatest extent possible, and then to tailor the solutions and to propose something that really answers the needs. Today, if you get, let's say, an AI-generated report, there's a high chance it will be so generic that it will be useless. Tomorrow maybe it will be better, but most probably you'll still need someone who will be like this interface.
Really great. And Katerina, I would love if you could give us your perspective on customer service and where AI is going to have a big impact there.
Sure. And just before starting talking about that, just a small comment based on what Stanislav and Joseph already said, that we are afraid that AI might replace some people and create, the lack of actual human resources, etc., etc. But I think that's a wrong perception. Because if something can be replaced or someone can be replaced by AI, means that person wasn't utilized its skills and experience to the extent that is needed. And Stanislav is right. We should just use it to the correct extent to make sure we just make our service better. And talking about customer support in this perspective, for example, like chatbots, it's nothing new in the industry, and it's like the first thing that was utilized using AI. They started to write this very, very generic responses, support queries, but still, we can use it at the first stage of customer support, providing us an ability to communicate via chatbot, provide multi-language support, etc. Then you can implement AI in understanding what is a user request based on the history of this interaction on the platform. But at the same time, that AI can be used to filter such requests and to make a seamless transition to the actual human support, because that's still what we needed. We have users that still need the real interaction with the real people, just not all requests should be submitted to that. And another level in working with customer support operation is just making better user engagement to analyze the user behavior in the real time, as was already mentioned, the history of bets or wins or wherever, creating right promos, having in mind all the regulations and marketing requirements, also being able to make a pause or stop in the right moment and not to make the abuse of AI, and making sure that the user is actually playing according to its own needs and will, and not just being imposed by the technologies that is used.
Very good. And Stan, I know that we discussed single view of customer at one point in increasing retention rates dramatically. You had a specific example, I think. Could you just share that with the audience?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is one of the operators that I'm discussing pretty often with them. They are based in the UK, and they have 10 different brands across different verticals, but even multiple brands within the same vertical. And let's imagine that if you operate with one brand, it's fairly easy to build what we call the single view of customer, because the idea is that you connect the data across all touch points, and then whenever you need to reach out and, for example, to propose a promotion to a specific player, or whenever they're reaching out to a customer service team, you know how much they were playing, how much they were depositing, how many times, and what were the topics that they were reaching out to customer service, you know if they had any payment problems, and so on and so on. And you know how they were clicking through the website, when they were navigating, so you know everything about them. In a simple setup with one brand, it's easy. But imagine you have 10 different brands, and that's when it starts to be complicated. We're speaking about $1 million projects, and then everything depends on how you see this one player across all of those brands. But then, let's say that you can tell that, hey, there's a specific player, they like horse racing, they're a fan of Manchester United, and that you know based on the sports betting vertical. And combining this kind of information with any other items is something that gives you an edge over the others. This is something that, yes, we had the capabilities to do it a few years before, but now suddenly we can do it much faster and much cheaper. So the first ones who will do it will definitely have an advantage over the others.
Brilliant. Okay, so we've spent a lot of time talking about how AI is going to be amazing for the gaming industry and change things for us, but there are some risks involved with AI, and I'm going to have Jaka talk to us here about what some of them are and how we can prevent them.
Everything that he just mentioned, again, I'm sure AI Act will only be applicable within the 27 member states. First of all, Joe, I agree. We're not global regulators. But everything you mentioned here falls under the definition of high-risk classification in AI Act. Just to read it again. Behavioral profiling systems, high risk. That's the third highest risk under AI Act. The only higher one is the one we can't have in EU that they have in China. You can recognize faces and whatever on the street and give social scoring to people because they cross the street, there's a pedestrian crossing. AI-powered moderation tools, high risk. Player ranking and skill matchmaking systems, high risk. Now why am I saying high risk? Not because they are high risk, but because the AI Act is based on the risk approach. So the higher the risk, the more regulated those platforms and services will be. And Joe, yes, we are killing ourselves, but at the end of the day, there's a regulator in Malta for the VLOPs in Commission who will actually act. They will actually impose sanctions. Just let me finish. So, those things now that I mentioned, just for the high-risk systems, human oversight. You mentioned that human oversight will be important. From a human point of view, yes, but it's also a requirement. So if there's a high-risk system you must enable the players to have human oversight so they can exclude the AI and talk to a human because you're actually applying high-risk AI system to your gaming tools. So we will have problems with regulators, Joe. They will find us. They will have problems. They will be active. In bigger member states, even more than in smaller member states because they have more staff. And the Commission, this huge bubble in Brussels, huge bubble, they have a lot of people in that palace on Schumann Square who are right now training just to be regulators for AI, including gaming. So this will be a disruption, even though we are shooting ourselves in the knee, Joe.
If I may, I am very much against a regulation like this that regulates technology. I believe that they took the easiest way out, and therefore it will not work. Why? Because if they really wanted to cater for gambling, for e-commerce, for financial services, and that's where the highest risks are, obviously, they should have gone the more difficult and complicated way of training the individual regulators that regulate those sectors and make sure that they understand AI first, and then through that ensure that each industry is regulated properly, also with AI in mind. And that would have been a smart way of regulating rather than throwing this AI Act across the board without having specific rules and regulations for each and specific industry. Because for some industries, this might be problematic. For some others, it might be reasonable. But throwing an act like this across the board, that is a horizontal regulation, it's a horizontal technology that affects a lot of industries, in my opinion, is going to be very ineffective. I hope I'm wrong, of course, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be very ineffective.
Okay, sounds like a lot of gloom and doom here, but I'm hoping the panelists can give us some hope. So what are we supposed to do then? I know that, Jaco, you said that the EU is only one in the 14 tech companies. What do we do?
Well, first of all, in January, a new president was, he was sworn in as a president. On the other side of the great Atlantic, as he mentions many times, and one of the things he said, or he started doing, was a huge deregulation of American market in general. I'm not talking just about gaming. 2 weeks after that, the European Commission already, Ursula von der Leyen already said, well, yes, a certain deregulation will be needed in cross-sectoral deregulation, not just in gaming. She didn't mention gaming. But the European Union must be more competitive, so if cross-Atlantic are deregulating, we will also. So I'm anticipating a certain level of deregulation, as Joe mentioned at the very beginning, catalyzed by the happenings in the US, the Trump administration, and China, of course, playing their own game here. So let's wait, because I think there are some gossips that changes to the AI Act, which has not even been implemented fully, are being prepared in Brussels already, because they already figured out that they overcomplicated things, you know. And look at GDPR, 6 years and more. Well, it was in 2018, yeah, almost 6 years. Well, more than 6 years. It's almost 7 years now, I'm sorry. Anyway, do you remember the hype we had at that time? Everybody was running around writing this. I mean, lawyers were making a lot of money drafting all this, you know, statutes, right? It was a big business. Today, after 7 years, almost 7 years, can somebody in this room honestly answer my question? Is your private data, your personal data, in your honest opinion, and your digital footprint, in your honest opinion, more protected than it was 7 years ago? And digital footprint is every time you say, I agree with all the cookies, and even if you say, I do not agree with the cookies, open a tool in your browser and count the number of cookies that were still uploaded to your device, even though you rejected all the cookies, because nobody, apart from the really big guys who are under information commissioner's surveillance all the time, and of course medical institutions, whoever has sensitive data, that's okay. I feel more secure with sensitive data, to be honest, after GDPR. But my digital footprint is the same. It's just as unprotected as it was before, so let's not fool ourselves. And probably similar things will happen, but we still need to, and Joe, here I'll finish with an ethical and political statement. We still have to try. We still have to have a hope that, you know, AI cannot just run itself without any ethical implications. We need to think and discuss those things, but we need to implement them in a smart way, and we're not doing that at the moment. And I'll finish with this one. Thank you.
Okay.
Totally. In fact, what I'm saying is, let's be more specific. This is like AML, putting thresholds of 2,000 euros or 150 euros. That is all. That is just, we're using the bush for the trees. We need to focus on what is very important and what is really important. The same with AI. Let's focus on what is really important, and it will be much easier to police something alone that is more specific, where you are targeting what is really important.
Yeah, and I will just step in talking about creating something specific. Even with AI Act and limits on the behavior analytics, we can think about it from different angle. I think what if we use it just to actually being able to monitor the user behavior and to prevent addictions and to implement responsible gaming policies. So if we don't treat and perceive it just as a single enemy and try to look on it from different perspectives and how it can actually improve the processes and help regulators themselves, that might be a totally different story.
I'm just going to have you elaborate on responsible gambling and AI, because it would be a shame to stifle the innovation with AI in our industry when you can be solving problems that we have today. Right, okay, we have just more than 5 minutes left. Who has some questions for us? Anyone? Shy this morning. You guys were all out too late last night. Okay, so let's talk about a couple more exciting things happening in AI to finish things off. We have not talked about AI agents yet, and I love this topic because it's really hot in my world. So Stan, can you tell us maybe some ways that we can use AI agents?
Definitely, again, I will be slightly biased towards data since it's everything that I do, but even when it comes to, let's say, we have an operator, and in order to keep the business as usual, let's imagine that there's a team of 5 data engineers that are looking at how the data is getting taken from the BAM, the CRM, it's getting loaded, processed, and then handed over to the marketing teams, to RG teams, to make all the decisions, decide on the campaigns, on the detection of the problematic players, etc. What is happening today, that thanks to the agent, you simply need to equip the smartest guy in the room out of those 5 with the right way, the right training, how to interact with the agent, how to get his job automated, or rather the job of the 4 others. And then the manager, what they should do, because suddenly you realize that you have one person, highly skilled, who's able to actually do the job of 5. Then, of course, there's many possibilities. You can reallocate the people among the different teams. But personally, what I see, what is happening, because we've had many layoffs across the data teams in many companies that operate, whether it sportsbook or online casinos. And I think that this wave will even continue, because eventually what I would do if I was such manager, I need to look at the balance sheet, at the P&L. I would cut the cost by half. I would keep 2 people. I have excess capacity, so I know that there will be more players. I will need more people as well to serve my teams. And then, at the end of the day, I still need to give a pay rise to those 2 who stay, because suddenly they're much more effective than they used to be. This is one of the options. Another, we touched on that before. If you have agents that write the reports for you, eventually you don't need the reporting guys. But here I would move them closer to business, because this is the part that will not get replaced in at least the next 3 years, I'd say.
Very good. Okay, so ways to cut costs here, but can you guys give us some idea of what the barrier to entry is with getting involved with AI technology for maybe those out there that are new to it? The affordability, because Joseph, I know you've said it's been around a long time, but hopefully it's gotten cheaper. I don't know, Stan, I'll start with you on this.
For some reason, everybody started talking about AI. It's just during the last 1 year or 2, yeah? That's specifically because of the barrier of entry. It got so low that everybody can just buy a subscription in whatever tool you like. It's affordable, it's like, well, the biggest one that is like really innovative is like $200 per month. It's only in the US, this actually can get you the job of a junior developer done, so you already have one hire less to do. And at the end of the day, what we will see, this will persist, this will stay like that. And it's not going to fall back. Again, here, one more point. Since all the operators will know, because everybody will realize that suddenly developers can work faster and cheaper, this will make a huge price competition, because, for example, platform providers, game providers, nobody is excluded from this, but suddenly you'll have to be more competitive, because your clients know that you can do things faster and cheaper. So we're going to see pretty interesting stuff happening.
Beautiful. Okay, so we have 3 minutes left. So I just wanted to leave you guys with some hopefully positive closing thoughts. So I'm going to have all of our panels give us their best advice on how, with dealing with all of these regulations that we've discussed, we can still innovate. What is your best tip for that? I'm going to start with you, Joseph.
Start. No, joking
Positive,
apart.
positive.
Joking apart. I believe that at the end of the day, we have the right infrastructure in Europe to really build. We have a knowledge economy that is advanced compared to other economies, so let's take advantage of that. But at the same time, also let us please come a bit more together and let's, even when there are consultations, for example, let's voice our concerns. I feel that sometimes society has become so passive and accepting everything. If we get a dictator, I believe we'll just be happy and say, okay, it's fine. And this is, I think, if we change this attitude and become a bit more, let's say, I hate the word, but a bit more revolution and challenging things, challenging whatever the governments come up with. Not in a negative way all the time, but rather just challenge it to make sure that they're doing the right thing. Unfortunately, sometimes I feel that we're too passive. If we are not, I think things will be much brighter.
Wonderful. Okay, 1 minute left, so nice and quick. Katerina.
And I would say build up the processes, starting with the implementation AI in the very, very back-end development stages. Train your team on the ethical use of AI, buy tools that can be used on a corporate level, not your employees just working somewhere hidden and not showing you that they're actually implementing AI in their processes to streamline their work. Just encourage them to share their knowledge about AI and to improve the processes instead just pretend that was done by them. And on the next level, compliance part. Don't neglect diving out and explore what are the pitfalls and the blockers that you might face, because we have them, we will have them, there's nowhere to run away, and just build your processes according to that.
Thank you very much. I'll be very short. Don't panic like we panicked with GDPR. Don't panic. Be compliant, but just don't panic. I mean, things will evolve in those next 5 years very much. And a hope on adding to what Joe said, I think our continent actually got a kick in our butts to grow up in the past few months. This is our historical opportunity that 500 million people will not be protected and controlled by 300 million people and protected against 120 million people or a billion people in the East. So this is our chance, and I really hope we take it as Europeans.
Brilliant. That's Sam.
Yeah, finally, I agree with you guys. We need to be patient. We need to see what the future will bring for us, because definitely sometimes we see overregulation, then people might be stepping back, and I hope to find the right balance pretty soon. And about the innovation, we need to start adopting, basing it, but taking a small step approach is the only way to go for now.
Excellent. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for